Today I'm going to be showing you the secret roadmap to building a $1 million consumable brand, which means if you're selling something that people eat like cereal or hot sauce, or they drink like tea or coffee or anything related to them, this process will work for you and anybody can do it. It doesn't involve you changing your craft or radically changing your product. It doesn't involve you learning to code and becoming some sort of tech wizard, and it certainly doesn't involve you becoming some sort of full-time marketing guru. All you need to do is follow these steps. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and begin with our typical founders. If this sounds like you, because I've talked to so many people who have been in the same boat, then there is a lot in store for you. Whenever you start a new business, they typically say something like, I'm great at the stuff, making the product, building the formulas, building the look, the feel, the packaging, how you're going to present it, how it tastes, all of that stuff. But the tech and the marketing and the sales just kind of feel like they're falling apart. That's the biggest struggle I often see. The founder will also say things like, I don't have time to babysit another project, but ironically, they're hiring influencers and reviewers and ad agencies and all these different AI tools that are supposedly going to blow them up overnight. But you need to just focus for a second as that founder and just stick to the path. I guarantee you it'll work. And the last thing is they want to grow, but they don't really want to lose their identity in the process. A lot of founders, because they've built their thing, because it's basically their baby, they kind of struggle to see the disconnect of how their market might perceive it. Meaning you've probably put a lot of sweat equity, time, money into building your thing. But again, you have that association because of all of that time you put into it. But the market doesn't. They don't know how special it is. So that's really important moving forward. Now, this is what keeps those founders struggling. They feel like they're going to try everything and they're just still falling behind. They were told that something was going to blow them up, that this was going to be the next big thing. It still doesn't work. Maybe you have some regulars as a founder, a community, some small die-hard fans, but you're not really seeing sustainable growth, which is most important for your business. Even if you don't want to reach 1 million, this is very important because you at least want to get to the point where you're comfortable enough where you don't overpack your inventory and spend too much, but you don't underpack it because more and more people are buying it. You want to find a happy medium where you're seeing sustainable growth that's predictable. Last thing is they can't really see how to move forward without burning out. You don't want to really get into that too grindy phase where you're just doing everything, knocking on doors, going to networking events, just every single farmer's market under the sun just to get people to talk about your stuff. There's a much more efficient way to do all of this. Now, after 10 years, we had actually looked at all of these types of consumable businesses, and we kind of started to realize something. The reality is when we had looked at the top 500 consumable brands in the world and started to reverse engineer their success, there were a lot of trends. We had discovered that let me move myself here. We had discovered that almost all of these new brands were struggling from 3 missing key links inside of their business. And to be clear, here is the metric for a $1 million brand before moving forward. Ideally, 3 to 5 products priced at $25 to $35 a day, selling at 25 to 30 times a day for that price point. Now, let's move into why this is so important. Let's look at these 3 brands here right now. You might have seen one of these. Some of these are even household names, but they don't start out that way. So Magic Spoon, worth $85 million, Black Rifle Coffee Company, about $340 million, and then Liquid Death is $1.4 billion. They all have something universally in common, which after the founders and owners start to change these in their business, they see something very important happen. They start to build real passive income streams that are selling for them 24/7, 365, really without them having to go through all of the hoops of trying to just get people to notice and buy their stuff. They move to more time for life, family, friends. They start to see their business really take off, especially if they stick to this. It takes a little while, it takes a little work, but I swear this is a process that's been proven time and time again, and it's happened for decades. All you need to do is stick to it. I'm going to move myself here. They finally feel like the business was working for them, not the other way around. If you feel like you're working in your business instead of on your business, then unfortunately you get into this vicious cycle where the business never truly ends up growing, and unfortunately you kind of just bought yourself a job. So Let's be very honest about ourselves before we continue. I need you to just understand these 6 key things because they're very important. And if you cannot accept these, then unfortunately, you're not quite ready to get to the point where you have a successful brand that's actually generating profit and doing so predictably. First and foremost, let's talk about your stuff. Here's the current reality of being a brand that sells a consumable: coffee, tea, sauce, whatever, food, this all applies. Everybody is likely sourcing from the same suppliers. Let's face it, if you're buying ingredients, if you're buying stuff, especially if you're something where they can only grow in a certain region, like if you're selling coffee as an example, there's only a select amount of farms. Or if you are including ingredients in some sort of consumable, they're probably looking at the exact same suppliers you are. Buzzwords don't really mean as much anymore. In fact, a lot of them are pretty much just standard across the board. Organic, fair trade, farm to cup, non-GMO, vegan. If you're doing things like that, those have kind of moved into the expectation of just being a standard feature as a part of the product. And really what it comes down to is people buy what they feel. Buying is an emotional decision. They don't just buy the features. And reality is that you're probably saying a lot of the same features as your competition. It tastes good, it's higher quality, it's better, it's XYZ, yet talk to your competition, go to their website, they're probably saying the exact same stuff. Now, let's talk about what a brand is not. This is not what a brand is. It is not picking a fancy color scheme, font, and design. If you want to be a luxury brand, you cannot skip all of the actual equity that people have and the feedback rounds you need to go through. If you look fancy, that doesn't mean you can just suddenly command a higher price. That means that right now you are positioned to ultimately be a premium product, but you're going to struggle because ultimately people have never heard of you. They don't know why it matters. They haven't experienced it. They're not telling their friends. It is all about that core grind right now. You need to position yourself as an identity first and foremost, and trying to sell the features, they won't mean anything to the end customer because they only matter to you. If you've built it, you're too close to the product, and ultimately you're trying to sell it as if you were selling it to somebody else. If I make coffee and I sell it like I sell to other people who make coffee, they're going to look for things that they value as roasters. If I do the same thing as a hot sauce, tea, cereal, any sort of food, if I come to people who make that and I sell it like I'm selling to them, you're going to struggle because they're not your target audience. They're not your tribe. They're not your identity. It only matters to them. And finally, the product itself is not going to matter without any buyer context. Meaning if you're selling something to them, they need to understand why it applies to them, how it makes their life better, how it benefits them, why it's better than the competition from their perspective, meaning you have to use the language they use. If you're using terms and jargons that people in your industry only understand, then unfortunately it falls flat. Now, this is why founders get in what I call the groundhog loop or the repeat loop. You're probably going to find some customers, try to convince them that you're better. You're going to add new stuff to your website, redesign it, make your packaging look prettier, maybe sell some new product, but you don't really have a sustainable growth path. And a lot of times this can happen as a flash in the pan result as well, where maybe one of your videos pops off, one of your social media posts pop off, one of your ads does really well, but it's not sustainable. You have to capture that momentum. And what happens if you don't is you just consistently get stuck in this loop. Now, if you don't fix this, if the founder doesn't fix this, they're always going to be stuck. Let's look at this in a loop right now. The average lifetime spend per that customer is probably going to be $1,000 to $2,000 over a few years, meaning that's how much they're ever going to buy from you over that period. So you're going to find new customers, convince them of your quality, try and get them to buy. You make a single sale. They don't really identify with it. They didn't really feel like it was something earth-shattering or it aligned with who they were. Maybe they tell others, so this process repeats. But founders need to shift their mindset away from selling their craft and start understanding people. Again, buying is an emotional decision. And I will prove this to you later, even if you feel like, hey, Alex, that's not true. I buy because XYZ. Trust me, people buy identity, not just the ingredients. What you buy says a lot about who you are as a person. The car you drive, the phone you use, the products that you consume, the services that you pick over the others do inadvertently tell the world about you as a person. Emotional messages are always better in this regard as well. People don't want to buy a spec sheet. They don't want to look at it and buy the ones and zeros. They want to buy how it transforms them. How does it make them feel at the other end of the experience, especially if you're selling a consumable. If you're selling something to somebody, then you need to understand what it's going to do for them and how it's going to emotionally charge them. It's going to hit them in all the right notes. And most of all, craft alone is not going to differentiate you anymore. If you're out there saying like, yeah, we're eco-conscious, we're luxury, we're expensive, we have all these features, we use these ingredients, well, guess what? People can formulate the same product, and they likely already have formulated the same product in a very similar capacity. Because what you need to accept now is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel to be successful. Most products are literally just derivative of each other. They're targeting at somebody specifically. It's just taking it and changing its position in the market, who it's for, and what they want to hear. Now, we discovered the secret to how these highly successful consumer brands actually grow. Let's revisit our 3 brands and see how they work. Magic Spoon, 85 mil, is targeting health-conscious millennials who crave that childhood nostalgia without guilt. By the way, they do sell this cereal. It's same sugary cereal ingredients like Fruit Loops, Fruity Pebbles, stuff like that, but without the guilt. And there's tons of sugar inside of those original ones, so they want to target this segment. It builds a tribe by making adults feel like kids again, but with better understanding of what they're looking for now that they're older. Low sugar, high protein, fun branding. The loyalty comes from the lifestyle alignment. Eat this sugary cereal just like you did when you were a kid without the guilt. The Black Rifle Coffee Company. Veterans, patriots, pro-Second Amendment Americans, usually men, they build on value-first branding, content, merch. The mission is to rally a community to drink coffee that represents their identity. Coffee is the product, but the belief is sold. They have a tribe of people who already like these things. This is one of the biggest ones, Liquid Death. You've probably heard of this one. If you haven't, it's literally water in an aluminum can. And it is a $1.4 billion company that is targeting rebellious Gen Z and millennials who want to stay healthy. They want healthy choices, especially those who have quit drinking alcohol and feel that FOMO experience when they're at a bar and it's like, hey man, why aren't you drinking? They can still hold that drink in them, but still get that healthy experience without the drawback of like a hangover, the calories, all of that. They made water cool. They built a cult around punk metal visuals, humor, and social campaigns. The can is the badge of identity. It's not just water. Go down the grocery store and look at 50 other water brands. It's probably got a mountain on it that's got snow peaks, some sort of fresh blue scheme. You look at this, Liquid Death, and you say, man, that's water? I got to learn more about what this thing is so special. And a lot of people will even say they've tried it and say like, oh, it's just water in a can. So this is what ends up happening when you build a consumer tribe converting cycle. Suddenly your lifetime spend jumps up through the roof. Those customers are spending $5,000 to $10,000 for the exact same product, sometimes even double, triple, quadruple the amount they would regularly spend on the normal product. Now all of a sudden, this is how you do it. You define your ideal customer. You build an identity, their age, their gender, their hobbies, their interests, their likes, their wants, their dislikes. You know where they hang out. There's Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, in-person meetings, like even just basically the social media outlet they're hanging out. They already identify with the product. Because when you say my thing is made for people like you, you're actually skipping a lot of that. They're already tapping into that identity, that tribal mindset they have. Then you can give away a free sample and break even or a micro profit. Suddenly you're generating tons of new qualified buyers automatically. You could upsell them after they've experienced it, after they've got a little bit. The first hit is free. You could upsell them to something bigger, better, and then you could get them to tell others about your product because they hang out with people just like them, and then they go from buying to subscribing most of the time. Then they go from a subscriber to a fan. They want to buy merch. Suddenly it's cool to rep your brand, and other people who hang out with people in that little tribal bubble say, hey man, what's that logo? What is this? Oh, it's actually blank for blank. It's coffee for teen, it's coffee for busy moms. It's hot sauce for busy tech workers. It's cereal for eco-conscious warriors who want sustainable initiatives. They soon will become an affiliate and get you more customers. You can literally get them to become your salespeople because they identify so hard with the product. They want to share it. They want to talk about it naturally. Now, does this actually work? I'm going to give you a real world example. This is Athletic Brewing Company. It is a non-alcoholic beer company, but it positions itself, its tribe identity is a performance-first lifestyle brand. They want clarity, control, clean choices into a movement. They do not want to have people who are just looking like, hey, I've been drinking Budweiser for years and now I want to drink the other thing. They want people who love the ritual of a cold one, but not really the hangover, the byproduct of it, the calories. It's just liquid bread if you drink beer. So they're looking for people who are health conscious, they're performance oriented, probably 25 to 45 years old, who still love beer culture, but don't want the consequences of alcohol, which means like ex-athletes, entrepreneurs, parents, sober conscious professionals. The belief is that they want to feel sharp, not sluggish. The craft beer is a vibe, not a buzz. Sobriety isn't weird, it's winning. Think about it this way. There are hundreds of non-alcoholic beer brands on the market, but each one of them is already targeting a tribal identity. Either that or they're leveraging a legacy brand that's been around for hundreds of years. But if you wanted to start a non-alcoholic beer brand for somebody who would value non-alcoholic beer, well, then all of a sudden you start to paint a picture of people who actually want that. And that could be unlimited niches within a niche. And you all of a sudden are building around that ideal tribe, understanding their likes, their dislikes. You can adapt your language. Now these people, I can come to one of these ex-athletes and go, hey, I know you used to drink beer, but now you're struggling to just get that ritual that you used to have before where you could just crack open a cold one, relax, sit back, and you don't want to go through all those empty calories and all that stuff that doesn't have any nutrition. You don't want to wake over with a hangover and a big headache. Well, we actually made Athletic Brewing Company specifically for you. Then all of a sudden, 80% of the sales process is now cut out. And I'm going to prove this. If you still are not getting it, that's totally fine because I'm going to show you how you are in this right now. Let's start with you to prove this. What's a product or service you love to buy from? Not because it's necessarily number one in the market. It may not be the best, but it feels like you. You identify with it. You like it. You would recommend it. You want to talk about this thing because it's a product that you're a fan of. And likely when you think about it, there's different things that you're a fan of. Maybe it's the packaging, the presentation, the colors, the fonts, the way it feels when you open it, the way it feels when you use it. Something about it you like, and you just keep giving them money. Think about how that started. It might have taken weeks, months, maybe years, but it was one small discovery, maybe a YouTube video, an ad, something like that. Some friend recommended it. Then it's a small purchase. You probably got something small. You probably didn't dive headfirst into the biggest, most expensive thing they offer. But then boom, suddenly you're a lifelong fan. Suddenly it's sitting in your fridge. Suddenly it's sitting in your driveway. Suddenly it's showing up in an Amazon package. Congrats, you have now learned that you're in a tribe because that product or service that you associate with, there are other people who are just like you congregating in spaces right now across the internet, in person, somewhere out there. I guarantee you there's probably a fan club for the thing that you like to buy from. That is what you have to channel into your consumable because everything will become easier, faster, and so much more powerful for your business to grow. Now, let's recap why this is so powerful for founders. You now have a 24/7, 365 customer generating machine. You don't have to create any new products for your business. You just have to position it to somebody. And when you find that somebody, you instantly connect with those customers without needing to convince. They don't need to be an expert in how your thing is made, where it comes from, why it matters. They know, hey, that's me, and I have these problems, and I would like that transformation. Hence why, like, if I was going to sell coffee or tea as a prime example, I wouldn't just sell it out there and say, like, yeah, we're vegan, we're non-GMO, we're fair trade, we're from this farm, we're from this organization, we roast in-house, we're hand. All of your competition is already saying that. position your tea or coffee for somebody who drinks a lot of coffee and tea, who needs it for a particular reason, and who ultimately aligns with your likes and dislikes. Then you can expand outwards once you define that tribe. If you're making coffee or tea for busy moms, well, they need a jolt in the midway through when they're taking care of their kids. If you're doing it for tech workers, you're selling coffee who need that caffeine boost for those 16-hour work days at the Amazon office when times are crunching through and you need to get that new code push. If you're selling coffee for people who are veterans, then maybe 10% of your proceeds go to the Wounded Warrior Project, and this is for people who are tired of boring civilian coffee. It's the same exact beans, but your identity is different and people will relate to it. They'll want it. So, this is where a lot of these founders are currently sitting, by the way, who have gone through this process that I have run through and explained to them. This one, 2.2 mil. This one, 41,000 just started out. This one's 35,000, in their subscription base right now. This one is 230,000 they just did last year. And this one is just starting out in the last 30 days at 62,000. And this one here has done 700,000 in the last year. Now, I want to just exemplify why this can change your life, because if you build your product, if you build your consumable around somebody, if you formulate an identity around it, everything will change. So here's the mindset shift I want you to take away before you exit out of this video. I want you to do one thing for me. So let's do the end card real quick. I want you to do one thing for me, but before we even talk about that, if you want to build this same system for your coffee, tea, consumable brand, you can visit brewtech.app and learn how to do it for free right now. But one thing I want you to do as the takeaway from this video, I want you to think about who would benefit most from your product. Think about who fits the identity most accurately. Who would see, hey, that's me, I already like this stuff, and now there's a better alternative. If you can find an ocean of people who have not been tapped into, if you're selling coffee or tea to somebody who just feels like they're tired of Starbucks and Folgers, you will build a successful $1 million brand. Or vice versa, if you're selling a food, if you're selling hot sauce, if you're selling cereal or something like that, find somebody who has been aching to get a new version of this that fits their lifestyle, their likes, their wants, their needs, their hates, everything that fits that buyer persona. But one thing to take away from this, beyond just this, start with the customer first and build outwards. Don't start with the product just yet. If you have the product already ready to go, even better, then find the customer who needs it. But think about a customer if you haven't built your product and how you can build a successful identity and tribe around them. That way, when you're ready to sell, you can ultimately get them faster, easier, and for far less effort to build $1 million or whatever version sustainable brand. Now, I hope this video was valuable to you. If it was, I would love a subscribe. I put out videos like these once a week on how to grow your business, how to earn more, marketing, sales, all of that stuff, so that you can skip all of the headaches that I had to go through growing my own business. But again, if you are a consumable brand and you're interested in building your own $1 million, or you just want to make your life easier and sell your stuff to more people, click that link below. We can walk through it step by step. We'll hop on a Zoom call together. But until then, I'll see you next time.